welcome into another fantastic episode. Very excited for you guys to hear this one. You know, we don't always get this perspective because of the legalization status in so many of the states, but we have to remember that the fight and our mission is not over. And this interview highlights some of the things that a grower has to go through to, when they're living in a state that still recognizes cannabis prohibition. And today's interview is with LoneStar from Texas. You can find him on Instagram at LoneStar_grows. And of course, being from Texas, my imagery of their law enforcement with the Texas, Walker, Texas Ranger from back in the day, but also their very staunch stance on cannabis and it being a gateway drug. And, they have very strict CBD laws even down there. Kind of comes through in this interview, and we get into, some pretty good detail about things that LoneStar has had to do. And I don't think it made the cut for the interview, but he actually had to take down some outdoor plants because he was having some contractors come over and do some work, and he had to actually chop them down. We do get into an IPM discussion about bringing plants from outdoors to indoors and why that's a no-no. But yeah, I haven't had to have that experience in a long time. Of course, I'm always worried about the police, but, even in a land of legalization, because a lot of us grew up prior to that and old habits die hard. But to not have the ability to go to the grow store, even though LoneStar doesn't really, to just not have that ability is different for a lot of folks. And I think that's a really good perspective. We also, go pretty deep on his grow room and his current setup. I think is really intricate. There's 4 different tents, and he kind of, stages things and walks us through how to get the most out of your space, and also a really good discussion on carbon dioxide and why it's important to supplement CO2 into your sealed grow rooms. So really awesome stuff. I really hope you enjoy it. Without taking up too much more time, you guys need to know that the doors for my Grow Pass membership are open. We've unlocked the secrets. We've unlocked the doors. We've opened it up. We are going to let you guys in the world. It's only for 2 weeks. July 9th is when we close things again. So you only have 2 weeks. Don't wait. Again, DM me if you're looking for a free trial. I have a code to give you to use at checkout. Would love for you to come in and check it out. What else do we have going on? We have a Dr. Zymes giveaway. You can find it at growcastpodcast.com/giveaway. We're giving away 2 quarts this time around. 1 quart of the multi-purpose, or not the multi-purpose, the Eliminator concentrate to 2 different winners. What else? Oh, this week is going to be your last chance to use the Sohum Living Soils discount code that we've been providing you for over a year now. Use growcast10 at checkout, sohumsoils.com. They have decided that, they're going to look for different avenues for their advertising dollars, and we totally respect that. But we also want to make sure that our members and our listeners are taking full advantage of those codes if you want to stock up on your Sohum. So if you're going the route with Sohum Living Soils, use the code growcast10 and save yourself 10% off. Well, our members save 20% off. So if you're really looking to stock up, maybe grabbing a membership even just for a month and grabbing that 20% off code. What else? Let's wrap this up on, we have a upcoming series, a month-long stretch, talking with growers from the Coco for Cannabis website. Super excited about that. Dr. Coco's a growcast and grow pass contributor, and he runs this amazing website with forums and regular grow challenges, and they have a plant training grow challenge coming up. And we wanted to kind of feature some of the people that completed journals and had something to share. So in the next coming weeks, we're going to have a chat with Dr. Coco, 3 or 4 of the growers from those challenges, and then wrap it up with a more intense Dr. Coco chat, bring in some in Dr. Coco's grow room knowledge right to you. So I really think that's it. I know this went a little long. I'm sorry, but we just have so much going on for you guys. Truth about cannabis nutrients. It's a 2-part Grow Pass episode that we're putting out there in the world. We're also doing archive Growcast episodes. We just have so much going on right now. Truth about cannabis nutrients. You can find all of this stuff at linktr.ee/growcast or in our Instagram profile. You can find it all there. Everything we're doing, you can find there. linktr.ee/growcast. Now let's get you on to this interview with LoneStar. All right, we are here with an interview from a very unique perspective, I think. I think this is going to be great. We don't get an awful lot of growers from, those completely illegal states. And today's going to give us that unique perspective. I mean, we've gone completely illegal countries, but we have to remember that we're still fighting that fight here in the United States, and for all of us to have that freedom to grow the plant and consume the plant as we desire. So I'd like to welcome in LoneStar. LoneStar from, I imagine that you can all guess it, from Texas, a grower from Texas. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into, what it's like growing in Texas. And I personally don't know anybody in the business in Texas. So I'm eager to hear what it's like, the culture, the Texas cannabis culture is like. But why don't you kick us off, just letting us know a little bit about yourself and kind of what got us to this point where you want to share your growing story with the Homegrown Helpers audience.
All right. Well, for starters, I guess like most of us, started at a pretty young age. I think around 9 or 10 years old. I had an older cousin visiting town, and next thing you know, everyone's inside. We sneak outside. I'm not sure what I'm about to get into. I'm taking a puff off of something wrapped up in a piece of paper. Then I'm acting silly, and she's telling me to not do anything dumb around the family. A few years go by, a couple of friends doing the same thing. And, with the propaganda and stuff surrounded us, at that point, I knew what it was. And wanted to fit in, but at the same time, didn't want to get in trouble. And, kind of grew up just kind of hanging around, the skateboarding crowd. And it was kind of always around. And to be honest, I would always try to get it away from my friends, man. It was just something that was just ingrained to me that it's bad. You don't do this. And I don't know what happened, but one day it kind of hit me like, I'm enjoying this. I don't know why it's bad. I haven't seen a downfall in grades. I'm still the quarterback on my team. Like, what's so bad about this? And then I came to realize, well, the only bad thing about it is if you get caught with it. So sure enough, that happens to me a few years later. And then by now I'm kind of entangled in the whole cannabis, everything. I'm young. I'm, your typical teenage stoner type kid, but at the same time, it really hasn't affected, all the good things I've done as a kid. My 21st birthday rolls around. A buddy of mine, just out of the blue, is like, "Hey, let's go to Amsterdam." I'm like, "Hey, let's go." I'm like, that sounds like a great idea for a 21st birthday. That's one hell of
a trip. Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so we saved up quite a bit of money. Went to the 21st annual High Times Cannabis Cup in Amsterdam, and man, that experience just opened up my eyes to a whole another world. That was back in, I believe, 2008. And just being at that event, seeing all the people from all over the world, it was just a really eye-opening experience for the plant, and just the benefits, not only the medicinal benefits, but just the benefits it has to humans in general. I mean, it just brings everyone together in such a good way. That really opened up my eyes. I kind of having trouble dealing the fact that it was illegal as it was back home. So anyways, we enjoyed our time there in Amsterdam. I smuggled a couple seeds back in the collar of my t-shirt. And yeah, the journey began.
That's funny. That's like you cut a slit in the collar.
I pulled a thread or two out, and then I just started pushing seeds into the steam.
Like, shit, I don't know where did those come from?
Pretty much.
I bought this shirt here.
I had no explanation. If I were to get caught, I was like, hey, we're just going with it, man.
Right. Absolutely. Cool stories. Like, yeah, I wasn't the t-shirt. I was the brim of the hat. You can kind of do the same thing on the inside of the brim, kind of pull out a couple threads or a slice, and then you can slide whatever you want. It wasn't typically seeds, but
plenty of
anyways,
airport tricks.
Yep. So that's great. It sounds like it's typically recreational. Have you found yourself more relying it for medicinal purposes at all?
I do realize that whenever I take breaks from smoking or consuming cannabis of any form, that I will have a few little issues sleeping here and there. But for the most part, no, I don't really have to use it medicinally for anything. I just kind of use it after a long day at work. I'm a welder. I work 8 to 12 hours a day, mostly on my hands and knees, getting burned all day. So it's just it's a really nice release when I get home, as opposed to knocking down a 12-pack.
Some say that would be medicinal, man. That's a relaxing,
I guess so.
end of the day effect.
That is right. Yeah, that is right.
So why don't you bring us inside your grow room, LoneStar, and bring the audience in and tell us everything that you can.
I'll try to give you the best visual I can. So
absolutely.
My grow area, it's roughly, so it's a small outdoor shed. It's insulated. I got a window unit in there as well as a portable AC. I'd say it's probably about a 15 by 20 shed. I have 2 4x4 gorilla tents. I have a small 2x2 and a 3x3 as well. The 2x2 I mostly use for seedlings. The 3x3 has various usage. I flower and veg in that one. So I have 2 4x4 gorilla tents. In one of them, I have a radical bag. It's like I don't know if it's 100-gallon or a 200-gallon, but they're really big pots. Hold, I don't know, 4 or 5 wheelbarrows worth of soil. And the other 4x4 bed, I have a 4x4 living soil pot, one of them big beds. I usually only flower in those. What I'll do is I'll start all my plants, whether they be cuts or seedlings, I'll start them in solo cups. I'll let them fill out the solo cup, and then I'll transplant them up into a 1-gal. And then from that 1-gal, I'll either put them in 5-gallon pots, and they'll finish out in those 5-gallon pots in the 3x3. Or I'll take them from the 1-gallon, transplant them directly into the beds, and then flower them out in the beds.
Awesome. What kind of lights are you using in there?
So in my 2x2 seedling tent, I have a 65-watt HLG LED. It's, I think, a 4500 Kelvin spectrum. It's either 45 or 5K, or it could be 4K. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a really blue spectrum.
Okay.
And then my 3x3, I have a LED chip on board fixture made by Timber Grow Lights. It's a 250 watt. I don't know if you've heard of the chip on board cob fixtures.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the 4x4s, I have a quantum board LED. It runs at about 400 watts. It's a custom build. And I think the spectrum on that's around 3000 Kelvin. It's a lot red, leans towards the red spectrum. And then the other 4x4 tent has there's this new company out called Geek Light. And they're kind of similar to HLG. They're just foreign. They use the same components, really good customer service, but their lights are almost an exact version of HLG's. I have their 480 watt version, which is kind of similar to the 550. And it's got a IV and IR and UV optional switches in there. So in flower, if I want, I can go in there and flip that UV switch on last few weeks of flower to kind of help produce a little more trichomes on the buds. As that towards the end of the cycle, if you use that UV switch, it's supposed to trick the plants into thinking that I guess they're getting more UV, so they'll produce more trichomes. So I've been using that to help with that.
Awesome. And you have CO2 in your room, right?
I do, yes. So,
What kind of supplements do you use? Are you using the bags, or you go get tanks, or how's that work out?
yeah. So for CO2, I have two of the 20-pound tanks. I usually only run one at a time, as I only have one regulator and one controller.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually run that into one of the 4x4 beds, depending on which one is usually the most full. I don't always have both tents running, and if I do, one usually has more in it than the other one. So I usually keep that set. I keep the controller set at around 1500 ppm.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's only running when the lights are on. It's got the controller and all that stuff. I keep an extra CO2 tank in there for A, when that one runs out, I got a backup. And B, since I only have one controller, I'll grab that other tank and just walk around. I'll unzip the tents one at a time, turn the tank on for maybe 5 seconds, turn it off, close the tent up. And I'll do that once a day just to give them a little something.
Nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, that's plant food. That's what
and then
causes the photosynthesis.
Yep. And then whenever the other tank runs out, I'll swap it out with the other one, and it's just a rotation. But yeah, gotta have your CO2 though. Gotta have your CO2. I feel like that's one of the things that a lot of newer growers overlook. I mean, whether it be for cost or just, I don't know, if you want that extra oomph at the end, you got to have the CO2 to get that.
So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, have you always supplemented with CO2, and what kind of made you make that transition, realize that was a necessity?
So no, I've only been using CO2 for maybe part of the reason I didn't want to get into it was for cost. I just honestly didn't have the few $100 to cough up for everything I needed to run it. Also didn't want to go the cheap route and get the bags, placing bags every month. A buddy of mine lived in Oregon. He was from here. He moved out to Oregon, and we've stayed in touch. And he brought it up one day. He's like, "Hey, what are you using for CO2?" I said, "Nothing. I just stand there and breathe really heavy." And he's like, "Dude, you got to get CO2 in there." He's like, "You're missing out on a lot." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, him having twofold the experience I did, I was like, well, maybe I should take this with a grain of salt and just kind of see what he's talking about." So got online and just typed in CO2 on some local for sale app. And surprisingly, I typed in CO2 tanks, and an ad popped up. This guy's selling carbon filters, fans, CO2 tanks. And I'm just like, oh, okay. So I send this guy a message, and we get to talking, and we agree on a price for everything, and walk out of there with a CO2 tank, a controller, filters, and fans for under a couple $100. It was a steal.
Nice.
It was a steal. So yeah, got the CO2, got it all hooked up, ran it, and that first harvest, I mean, the buds were bigger, and it was from a cut that I had ran previously, so I could see the differences. The buds were bigger. They were, just more swollen, a little more dense.
Mm-hmm.
Just when the plants were growing, they were growing. There wasn't a day I went in there and had to ask myself, what do they need today? Do they need to be fed, or do they need this? No, I just walked in there and I could just look at them and be like, oh, they're good. And whereas before the CO2, I felt like I would stand there and look at the plants and try to see what they needed. But I started giving them CO2, and I'd go in there and look at them, and they were just looking back at me like, "Oh, we're good today, man." So it was just it was kind of weird. Yep. I wanted to give them something, but they just didn't need anything. So it was a big game changer. I think CO2 at the proper levels definitely you'll see a difference.
So what other differences? Because I tell a story all the time, and I don't want to kind of prompt you. Did you notice anything else besides more vigorous growth? Were cycles sped up? Anything like that?
To be honest, I'm very bad at marking my calendar. I will be 100% upfront honest. I'm very bad at taking notes. So for me to say something flowered between 8 and 10 weeks,
yep,
That's about right. It flowered between 8
to 10 weeks.
Yeah, it didn't flower 65 days.
Gotcha. Well, I noticed, and I'd like to get into what you just said a little bit. Living soil is different. You're not really ever, worried about flushing if that's the type of thing you do. And, if you got beds, we'll get into that. But what I noticed along with vigorous growth, while everything's growing faster and better, is that the cycle went faster. So, I lost probably on average 3 to 7 days off a cycle or a flowering time by using CO2. And when CO2 would run out, like I would run 50 pound tanks and had 3 of them in rotation. So if I would run out, all 3 tanks would run out and I just didn't have time to get where I was going. I would notice immediately a change in the plant health and growth. And also on the back end, it would be typically a day or 2 longer, depending on how long I went without CO2 in that growth cycle. So really, really interesting points. I really urge anybody that doesn't have CO2. I mean, we all learn in biology class, like your plants need 3 things, and that's water, CO2, and light. I mean, that's the basis of plant survival. So, ambient temperature or ambient CO2 levels typically, were around 400 ppms, depending on where you're at. They can be 500-600 ppms in the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. But as you stated already, LoneStar, our goal is to get that up to around 1,500 ppms when the lights are on. So you're tripling, potentially ambient. I would wager, a decent amount of money that in your grow rooms, you're not attaining that ambient ppm levels. Would you agree with that? I mean, your plants are consuming CO2, so.
Yeah, no, they're definitely. I mean, when they suck it all up. When I go in there and the lights are off, I mean that controller's reading 300, 400, and then it starts pumping them starts pumping that CO2 out. And as soon as lights go off, it's already all gone.
Yep.
I mean, you're definitely taking it up.
Yep. And we have to take a quick break to thank our mygrowpass.com partners, diamondcutco.com. While membership is open, all of our vendor partners do an amazing job to support us and support our members through these 2-week blitz of bringing in new members, getting them onboarded, and making sure that they have everything that they need in order to succeed in the growing world. Diamond Cutco usually goes above and beyond, and this time is no different. They have given our listeners 15% off, our members 25% off, and are giving away like 20 pairs of scissors across both platforms. Really crazy stuff. I'm looking at their website right now, and I just punched in the code growcast15, growcast15 for 15% off. I just got their 4-pack, the starting lineup, 4 premium trimming scissor bundles, stainless steel, typically $65, and I'm getting it for $55.25. That's like less than $15 for a pair of scissors. A pair of scissors that you may never have to buy a different kind again, and you get 4 of them. I mean, you can't even go to your local grow store and get a deal like this. Of course, you'll have to pay shipping, but you really should check them out. DiamondCutco.com, premium top-of-the-line scissors, growcast15, members save 25% off. Thank you, Diamond Cutco, for all that you do. Now, let's get back to this interview with LoneStar from Texas. So, I wanted to get your perspective of what it's like growing cannabis in a completely illicit market. Like, as far as I remember, Texas has very staunchly been against cannabis. They dragged their heels on a CBD law.
Yeah.
So what's it like? Do you have concerns going and swapping out your CO2 tanks at the grow store?
Yeah. Well, I'm a welder, so
okay.
I guess I kind of get a little leeway there.
Gotcha.
I walk in with my work attire and
you got 2 20-pound CO2 tanks.
And it's usually right after I get off of work, so I'm dirty.
Right. Yep. So you get away with that. That's understandable. Do you have concerns? I mean, so do you get your CO2 tank swapped out of the grow store, or do you go to a welding place?
Oh no, I go to a welding store.
So when you're going to a grow store, do you have those concerns?
Never been to one.
Wow.
I've
Okay.
never been to one.
So you've been living soil from the get-go, or?
So no, funny story. When I first started growing, I've only been doing this for about 3 or 4 years now.
Okay.
Well, I guess not including my trial run from the gear I brought back from Amsterdam.
Sure.
So when I first got started, I started by asking my buddy that lived out in Oregon questions. What do I need? What should I be looking at? Do I need to watch videos? He was just like, dude, just buy some seeds, get some pot, plant them, get a light. He was like, just ask questions after you get started. I'm like, no, I want to know everything before I get started. So I'm searching my own. Started looking into it. I'm not sure why, but something told me that doing deep water culture was going to be the easy way to go. So I went and bought me a tote, one of them 27-gallon totes from the Home Depot. I got some net pots, got some hydroton, got some water pumps, got some air pumps, got some stones, all the gear you need to do water culture. And built me a little deep water culture system, set it up. I had it in the garage of my house at the time, which would get up to about 110, 120 inside the garage during the summertime. So battling water temperatures was tough. Every single day I would have to swap out 3 or 4 half-gallon milk jugs filled with frozen water. Basically, I'd just go in there, pull a couple of half gallons out of the freezer, drop them in the reservoir, take the ones that were thawed out, put them in the freezer, and it was just a constant cycle to keep the water temperature right. Constantly checking pH, C. It was a battle. It was a dumping 10 gallons of water once or twice a week. And to top it all off, I lived right across the street from a police station. So it was rough. Consider I had my RO system set up outside the house. So I was lugging in, 2 5-gallon buckets of water every other day. I don't know. I just assumed there had to be an easier way to do this. Like, it did not have to be this hard to grow a damn plant. Like, I had grown plants as kids and, at grandma's house or whatever, but it just was never this hard. So I told my buddy, like, hey, there's got to be another way to do this. He was like, I told you, go get some pots, dirt. And I was like, I want to grow, the fire. I want to grow this. I want to pump it full of this. And he was like, dude, you don't need all that. He's like, you're trying to grow a weed. That's why it's called weed. I was like, maybe this guy's right. I mean, he has been doing it, forever. I was like, let me give his advice a shot. So, got rid of all the hydroponic stuff, just hit up Build a Soil, got a small amendment kit, went up the road, got me a big old bag of peat moss, hit up the local brewery store, bought a big old bag of rice hulls, and just started building my own soil. I whipped all that up. I let it cook for a few weeks in the backyard in a tarp. Ordered some fabric pots off Amazon, filled up those pots. And that was it. I threw some seeds. I got started in some soil with some seeds. And then once I saw, all I had to do was go in there and just kind of check the soil and make sure the plants had enough water for the day. I was like, why haven't I been doing this the whole time? I was literally getting to the point where, like, I was getting stressed over the fact of just checking on my plants. Like, I don't know why. It would just frustrate me, like, to go in there and have to check the PC or check the EC and the pH and the water temperature and then do this and do that. Like, I just wanted to go in there and hang out with them. I didn't want to have to go in there and, check their vitals every single day.
Right.
So, I'm so glad to have been shown the living soil way. I mean, it's been a huge game changer for me, at least, having a family and other things to do around the house and not just being able to give my plants my full undivided attention. It's definitely made me appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, man, that's an interesting journey to that point. Very quick. And you've realized what, many others have realized after many years of growing, with a bottle or deep water culture or whatever, that if you get a process down with this organic living soil stuff, it really is the easiest method. You mix some soil and put your plants in it and add water.
Yep. I mean, you add a little microbes here and there, throw some recharge in your water, and man, I mean, it's simple. It is simple. I was going from having damn near $100 a month water bills just because I was running my RO water, and sometimes I would turn the RO water on, forget about it, go out there, damn yard's flooded. It's just like, God, how much water did I run? Like,
I could tell you stories. I couldn't even begin to count how many times or how many gallons of water I wasted.
Just wasted. Yep. It's so, oh man, I hate looking back on it. And now I catch water in a rain barrel from my gutter, so I don't even use water from the tap anymore. I just use rainwater.
Oh, and it's so much cleaner that way. So much cleaner. So much better for your plants that way.
I think the only thing I use tap water for is maybe when I'm getting some clones ready, and that's about it.
So, a concern that came up in another interview that I just want to toss out there, and maybe you've already thought about it, was regularly cleaning your gutters and ensuring that no mold or mildew is building up in there. Because it will obviously come down with the water, build up in your tank. So
no, definitely got to do that.
Yeah, I never really thought about that, considering that it would get moist and dry out. But I mean,
it's one of those 55-gallon drums. I go in there and clean the gutters, and then every now and then I'll dump it. I'll just completely dump it on its side, and I'll spray it down real good on the inside. Go in there with the bleach wipe, just kind of wipe the walls up, because there's some slime and stuff will build up on there, but you just got to go in there every other month and just give it a little clean. It'll take about 5 or 10 minutes to clean it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I would suggest doing the same thing for your gutters. Maybe occasionally like making a bleach mix and just spraying off the roof and cleaning out the whole system that way.
Yeah, no, we get up there maybe, I don't know, every 2 or 3 months and just give the gutters a good clean. And there's a lot of trees around the house. So.
Well, I really wanted to get back to the discretion part. It was something that we don't hear an awful lot. You're in Texas, what is the cannabis culture in Texas, and what is it like growing in a completely illegal, and not just illegal, like anti-cannabis cannabis state, and what type of precautions have you had to take?
Oh man. So just as a grower or as a smoker?
Both. Like, obviously we're about the growing, but most growers smoke it. So,
well, I mean, like I said, I've been smoking since I was a lot younger. Always, been in and out of trouble because of it. I mean, it's the only trouble I've ever been in. I don't do bad stuff unless you want to consider this bad. Yep. I mean, the culture is definitely here. Texas definitely has the culture for it. When our time comes, it's not going to be a shock to the people that are here. We're here. We're being silenced, I mean, we're kind of just being held down, and, eventually, our time will come eventually. But as far as discretion and just, I mean, from my perspective, it's hard. I'm not very quiet. I'm not one to sit in the shadows and hide about something that I feel needs to be spoken on. I still sometimes consume in public. Smart about it, though. I mean, whether it be a vape pen or just off to the side, whatever the case may be, still wear my favorite High Time shirt and my Weed Tastes Good shirt and all that stuff. But as far as behind closed doors here at the house, I mean, I keep things pretty low key. I mean, we live in a quiet, nice, older neighborhood, a bunch of older neighbors around us. And for the most part, I mean, we just kind of mind our own. We stay busy around the house a whole bunch. I don't do anything outside I don't need to do unless it's completely dark outside. I mean, it's for me, I make it easy to be discreet. I don't put myself in any situation that would make things difficult as far as growing. But when it comes to smoking, I'd be 100% honest with you. I'm a little lawless. So I guess there's a little different spectrum to both sides on that.
Sure. Sure. So what type of precautions have you had to take with growing in such a anti-cannabis state?
Oh man. I mean, I keep everything hidden the best I can. I do everything indoors for one. It's in a shed that's in the backyard, separated from the house. So when I go out there, maybe I'll take a couple tools with me when I'm walking into it, or I'll bring a couple tools out when I'm walking out of it. I'll casually, the kids will walk in there with me. It's nothing suspicious by any means. The neighbors see me go in and out of my shed plenty of times. They wave at me. They say hi. They ask me how my veggies are doing in my greenhouse. They have no suspicions. And that's how I try to keep things. I just, I don't consume outside or anything to where, people are smelling it in the neighborhood. All of my trash gets composted. I mean, yeah, like I said, I just try to keep everything. If I keep everything in one location and don't start moving stuff around or throwing stuff away that doesn't need to get thrown away, then I don't have much to worry about.
So you mentioned that you do all of your growing inside, but that's not quite the case, right? You were telling me a story about right before we hit record.
So I was going to give outdoor a run this year. I built a greenhouse out back, pretty good sized greenhouse, like a 10 by 20. And I mean, big for my small backyard. And built a pretty good sized bed in there. And behind the bed, I stuck some 5-gallon pots with some cuts that I had in there. Well, they were doing good. They were doing really good. And I didn't realize they had a few mites on them. So, like I said, had some people coming to visit, some family. I cleaned out the greenhouse, took what I had in the greenhouse. I had just harvested inside one of the 4x4s. So I had a complete empty tent. I was like, all right, I'm just going to put these pots inside the tent for a couple of days until everyone leaves town, and then I'll bring them back out. And those couple days went by, and I made sure everything was fine for at least a few days. Sometimes I'll leave town for 4 or 5 days at a time, and everything will be untouched, and I get back, and at the most they'll need a drink of water, but nothing will be dead. Went in there, and in just those 2 days, those plants got covered in mites. I walked in there. There was they were already budding too. So a few of the colas had webs all over them. It was very obvious. I don't know how I didn't catch them before I took them in there. To be honest, I don't think I scouted them good enough before I took them inside, which huge mistake. Always scout your plants before bringing things indoors. More than likely, there's going to be a bug on it. And more than likely, there's going to be more than one different kind. But these were spider mites. And yeah, they went to town. They got a hold of every single plant I had in there. I knew I wasn't going to keep them, but I didn't want to just grab the plants immediately and run out with them. And for the fear that mites were going to just bump off on the other tents on the way out. Mm-hmm. So mixed up some wettable sulfur, which I obviously would never ever spray during flower unless I was going to just trash the product. Took a bunch of wettable sulfur and just doused the tent, doused everything in there, every single plant, head to toe. Came in there the next day. A lot of them were dead, and a lot of them were still moving around. Sprayed them down really good again. Just tried killing as many of the mites as I could. And then once I went in there the next day, they seemed about 90% dead. I gave them one more spray, and I cut them down, stuck them in a trash bag, brought them out back, and threw them in the composter. Because, yeah, that was the first time I've had to throw away full plants. And this was just maybe a week or two ago. This is very recent.
Cool.
But I wasn't going to battle it. There was no way in hell I was going to go in there and try to vacuum the buds off the plants. I mean, to be honest, it was going to be an outdoor experiment. It was just going to be something I was going to run. And I told myself, it doesn't work. And it didn't work. So they got the axe.
Well, it could have worked, right?
It could have worked. Absolutely. Like I said, it didn't put any dent into my rotation because it was something I was going to try outside. But yeah, luckily, like I said, we're all good.
So you just scrapped the grow and started fresh.
And you know what? On that end, I'm sitting over here, I'm telling nothing but failure stories. I did have somewhat of a slight success story outdoors this year. At the same time that I put those outside, I took a cut of mac and cheese that I found. Really good cut. I've been keeping this one. I'm going to have this one around for a while. But I took this mac and cheese cut, and I had a male, from Dungeon Vault Genetics, brandy wine. I had a male, and the male was good. I mean, he was very good structure. Had a good smell to him, but the structure was what really got me onto him. I normally toss my males. I was like, yeah, I'm going to try to breed. I was like, I want to try a small breeding project. So I kept the male. I took 2 of those cuts, and I put them all outside together. And this was before I put those other plants out there. These got put out there, and I bred them, and they got harvested before the mites came through. So I got a little jar with probably about 500 seeds of what I'm going to call wine and cheese, if it becomes anything.
Nice. I like that.
So it was definitely a success story. The plants turned out good. I got a bunch of good healthy seeds, so it'll be something for me to play with.
Cool. Well, I think this is a great spot to wrap things up. Do you have any last words of advice that you'd like to pass along to our audience?
I do. Just keep fighting. There's still a lot of us out here that don't have the privileges that a lot of people think that the community has. And that's all we ask, is we just, no matter where we are across the world, we all stay together and we just continue to fight for one another. That's
great. Regular listeners of the show know that, I kind of preach that. Not only is it the government that's against our right to home grow, but it's also people that are in our industry, the dispensary owners.
Absolutely.
They want your business.
They're in it for the money, and I'm in it for the freedom.
Exactly. This is just a plant, and if they're allowed to grow it, why shouldn't we be allowed to grow it?
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's, in my opinion, capitalistic greed, where they're trying to make other people stay out of the industry in order to maximize their potential market and profit. And
that's the truth.
We just got to stick together and keep fighting. Like LoneStar said.
Damn right.
Where can people find and connect with you if they're interested in doing so? Follow along with your grow journey.
If you like to follow me, you can follow me online on Instagram. My handle is LoneStar_grows. Just shoot me a request, and as long as we got a few mutual followers, or you follow a few mutual pages, then I'll go ahead and accept it.
Well, I'd like to say, if you're following the Homegrown Helpers,
that's right.
This comes out, expect just a brief influx of followers when this launches in a couple of weeks.
No worries. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, you think I can answer them, just y'all shoot me a message and we'll get talking about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. Thank you, audience, for listening. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and share the show. Till next time, happy growing.
Thank you, Rob.